When I finally shared with my mom that I was going on the solo trip I'd dreamed of for years, she said, "That's wonderful, we can all join you." So, I did something my family never thought I'd do. I stood up for myself, and their response pushed me to take a step I should have taken long ago. I'm a 32-year-old man who grew up in what you might call the quiet Midwest. Our family was the picture-perfect household in our community. We lived in a charming home, and we had a favored son. That favored son was my older brother, Ethan, now 39. Our house was practically a monument to his achievements. The walls were adorned with his awards and accolades. In my parents' bedroom, there was even a framed flag with his face embroidered on it. I didn't fully grasp the extent of this until my 8th birthday, when my parents, caught up in Ethan's science competition, overlooked my special day. I still recall the sting of them presenting me with a half-eaten soccer team cake, still inscribed with "Go Champions," as my birthday treat. Things only spiraled downward from there. In middle school, I earned a spot in an academic honor group, but it went unnoticed because Ethan had just joined the robotics club. In high school, I won a local photography award, but my parents couldn't make it to the event because Ethan was visiting colleges that weekend. Our belongings reflected the same bias. Ethan's room was filled with the latest tech, stylish clothes, and gear for his many activities, while mine held second-hand items and clearance rack finds. When I wanted to learn piano, I was given Ethan's old keyboard, which he'd abandoned after a few weeks. When I pointed out it was too large for me, Mom said, "We've already spent so much on Ethan's soccer gear this year." This continued through high school. I studied with outdated library books while Ethan got private tutors for his SATs. My parents bought him a car for college. When I needed help getting around, they suggested I take the bus. College was grueling. Ethan graduated from a top-tier university with full parental backing, but when my turn came, they could only cover part of my first semester at a state college. "We're still paying off Ethan's loans," they said. "You'll have to manage the rest." I juggled 2 jobs while studying, often dozing off over my notes. Meanwhile, Ethan landed a job through our parents' network. One particularly painful moment came during my 2nd year of college. I'd earned a partial academic scholarship and called home to share the news. My mother's first words were, "That's nice, but did you hear Ethan just got promoted to assistant manager?" My hard-earned achievement was brushed aside in moments, overshadowed by Ethan's career boost, largely thanks to our parents' connections. Then came Natalie, 38, Ethan's wife. My parents took out a loan for their lavish wedding, custom suits, a grand venue, and a 250 guest list. I overheard them fretting about the payments one night, but insisting, "Nothing's too much for Ethan's special day." When I mentioned how overwhelmed I was balancing best man duties with my full-time job, Mom snapped, "I thought you'd understand by now that we don't really care." Then came the twins. Despite still paying off the wedding loan, my parents helped with a down payment for a house near them for Ethan and Natalie. I watched them dip into retirement savings they'd claimed were off limits when I needed college help. "This is different," they said. "This is for our grandkids." Guess who became the default nanny? Me. What began as, "Can you watch the kids for a couple of hours, Jake?" turned into a weekly duty, then extended to evenings whenever they had plans. The twins, now 5, are lively whirlwinds. I adore them, but they're exhausting. Every weekend follows the same pattern. Ethan drops them off at my place with some excuse about needing a break or running errands. The boys wreak havoc, leaving my apartment in disarray. One Sunday, Ethan showed up at 7 a.m. with the twins in pajamas, claiming he and Natalie had an urgent brunch with friends. This would have been fine, except I had a side gig interview that day to help pay off my student loans. When I reminded him, he shrugged and said, "Family first," before rushing off. I missed the interview and the job went to someone else. After months of this, I tried explaining how draining it was, only for Ethan to accuse me of envying his life and kids. "You're just upset because you're still single," he said, as if my relationship status justified the exploitation. Last month, after a weekend where the twins spilled soda on my laptop, I decided to treat myself to a beach getaway. I found a quaint resort in the Carolinas, ideal for a peaceful escape. When I mentioned it at our Sunday family dinner, Mom's face lit up. "That's perfect. We should all go." In seconds, my trip became Ethan's childcare solution. Natalie was already searching for kid-friendly activities, while Ethan told the twins they'd spend a week with Uncle Jake at the beach. No one asked what I wanted. That night, lying in bed, I made a life-changing decision. I booked a different resort on a quiet, remote island. I told no one about the switch. I arranged time off work, packed in secret, and ensured my savings were ready. I know it's sneaky, but I was done. They'll head to the airport for their flight to the Carolinas, while I board a plane to my own destination. I've disabled location tracking and braced for the fallout. I know there'll be drama. I know they'll be upset. But for the first time, I'm prioritizing myself. For 32 years, I've been the dependable brother, the dutiful son, the ever-available uncle. I've sacrificed my social life, weekends, and needs to meet my family's demands. I've missed dating opportunities because I was always babysitting. I've declined promotions that might conflict with family obligations. I've put my life on hold to be there whenever they needed me. This isn't just about escaping a vacation. It's about breaking free from a lifetime of being used. I plan to use this as a turning point to set firm boundaries with my family, maybe even take a full break from them. I'm tired of always being the one to give. The family's support beam, the fallback plan. Reddit, am I overreacting? Should I just go along with their plans and accept my role? Or is it okay to want something more for myself? Update 1, thank you all for the support and advice. A lot has unfolded since my last post, and I want to share how it played out. The airport day went as planned, but was more emotionally charged than I expected. I arrived early and chose a check-in counter far from my family's. Through the terminal's windows, I saw them arrive. Dad checking their itinerary, Mom looking thrilled, Ethan managing the twins, Natalie handling bags. I quietly passed through security for my flight as they headed to their gate. As soon as they realized I wasn't there, my phone exploded with messages. First, confused texts. Where are you? We're at gate B17. Then worried ones. Jake, are you okay? Did something happen? Finally, angry ones. How could you do this to us? The twins are crying. I turned off my phone before boarding. For the first time in years, I felt a mix of freedom and guilt. I'd carried that guilt my whole life, but the freedom? That was new and thrilling. My resort was nothing like the bustling tourist spot they were headed to. Stepping onto the beach, years of stress began to fade. No twins to supervise, no family chaos to manage, no schedule to follow. Just me, the sea, and total freedom. The first few days were tough. I kept checking the time thinking, the twins would be eating now. Or this is when Ethan needs help with bedtime. Unlearning decades of habits isn't simple. I caught myself reaching for my phone whenever a child cried on the beach, my instincts urging me to help. At restaurants, I scanned menus for kid-friendly meals before remembering I was only choosing for myself. Years of prioritizing others had wired me to always think of them first. But on day 3, something shifted. I tried things I'd always wanted but never had time for. I took a goofy but fun snorkeling lesson and loved it. I joined a beach yoga group and met other solo travelers. I even had a spontaneous dinner with a fascinating woman I met at the resort's bar. It was casual, but it reminded me I could have a life beyond my family. The real challenge came when I turned my phone on after 5 days. There were 62 voicemails, over 180 texts, and 79 missed calls. My mother had even contacted my workplace, claiming a family crisis. Thankfully, I'd already told my boss I was on vacation. I listened to some voicemails. My mother's tone shifted from worry to anger to manipulation. Jake, how could you abandon us? The twins are heartbroken. Ethan's messages were harsher. You've ruined everything. The boys keep asking for you. Natalie had to cancel her spa day because I couldn't manage alone. But one message stood out, Dad's. He sounded uncertain. Jake, just let us know you're okay, even if I don't get what's going on. I'd never heard him speak to me without defending Ethan or pushing me to do more. I sent one text to the family group chat. I'm safe and enjoying my trip. I'll reach out when I'm back. Please respect my space. Then I muted the chat and focused on myself. The next 5 days were life-changing. I read 3 novels instead of bedtime stories. I had uninterrupted talks with other guests. I watched sunsets every evening instead of rushing to help with baths. I started journaling to process years of bottled-up feelings. One afternoon, sitting alone on the beach, watching the waves, a calm settled over me that I hadn't felt since I was a kid. I realized I'd spent so many years living for others' schedules that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be. In my journal, I wrote, I've been so busy being everything for everyone else that I forgot to be something for myself. Last night, at a beachside cafe, the older waitress, noticing I was alone, asked if I was content with my solitude. After I shared a brief version of my story, she said, family matters, but not at the cost of your own happiness. Sometimes choosing yourself is the bravest thing you can do. When I returned home, I didn't go to my apartment. I'd booked a hotel for 2 nights to prepare for the inevitable showdown. I updated my work emergency contacts, changed my locks, and wrote down my boundaries. My family found out I was back when I accidentally liked a friend's social media post. Within hours, Mom and Ethan were at my building, buzzing my intercom. I watched from my hotel window across the street, feeling oddly detached from their theatrics. I'm meeting them tomorrow at a neutral cafe, not my home. I know it'll be tough, but I've rehearsed what I need to say. My hands tremble thinking about it, but I'm choosing myself for the first time. Despite the anxiety, guilt, and drama to come, I know this is right. I'll update again after the talk. Thank you, Reddit, for giving me the strength to take this step toward freedom. Update 2, as planned, I met my family at the cafe, and it was more intense than I expected. Here's how it went. The cafe meeting started calmly. I arrived early, choosing a corner table with a view of both exits, a habit from years of bracing for family chaos. My hands shook so much I could barely hold my cup. My parents, Ethan, and, surprisingly, Natalie arrived together. No twins, thankfully. Before they could start their rehearsed speeches, I raised my hand and said what I'd practiced. I'm setting boundaries and they're not up for debate. The next 2 hours were an emotional roller coaster. Ethan sobbed, describing how my absence upset the twins. Mom used shame and guilt. After all we've done for you? Natalie unexpectedly tried to mediate, suggesting I watch the kids every other weekend. Dad sat mostly silent, visibly uncomfortable. The turning point came when Ethan said, "You're being selfish. Family means giving things up." Something in me broke. Calmly but firmly, I responded, "Yes, family means sacrifice, but it's supposed to be mutual. When have any of you given up anything for me?" The silence was heavy. For the first time, I laid it all bare. The years of being overshadowed by Ethan, the financial unfairness, the assumption that my time and life weren't as important. I showed them my calendar from the past year, every weekend marked with babysitting, every holiday shaped by their needs. I reminded them of moments they'd conveniently forgotten. Missing my college graduation because Ethan had a slight fever, borrowing my savings for a down payment to cover Ethan's tax bill, inviting themselves to my vacation without asking me. Each point hit hard, and I saw realization dawn on their faces as the pattern became clear. Mom tried to interrupt with, "That's just what brothers do." I said something I'd never dared before. "No, that's what hired nannies do. Ethan, if you need this much help, maybe it's time to hire one." From there, the dynamic shifted. Ethan stormed out, Mom trailing behind. Natalie stayed and admitted they'd taken advantage of me. After a long pause, Dad said, "We didn't mean to make you feel this way." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. After they left, I followed through with my plan. I moved to a new part of the city, to a smaller but secure apartment with a doorman briefed on my situation. I got a new phone number, shared only with work and a few trusted friends. The hardest part wasn't the move or planning, it was rebuilding my life. I had few close friends and no hobbies because I'd spent years at my family's beck and call. I started small, joined a baking class, a local walking group, and said yes to dinner invites from coworkers I'd always turned down. My first truly free weekend felt odd. I did things I'd never had time for, sleeping in, browsing a farmer's market, lingering in a bookstore. No urgent texts from Ethan, no guilt trips from Mom, no last-minute babysitting. The first Saturday I spent doing nothing productive, just lounging in sweats, watching films, ordering food. I felt guilty. I kept expecting a call or someone at my door with a crisis. When evening came and I was still alone, I realized I couldn't recall the last time I'd had a full day to myself. That night I cried, not from sadness, but from realizing how much of my life I'd given away. My family's reaction to my move was predictable. They found out my new job doesn't allow personal calls when Mom tried the company line. Ethan showed up at my office once, but security was prepared. He sent an emotional email accusing me of tearing our family apart. Surprisingly, Natalie sent an apology for her role in enabling things. Ethan initially resisted taking the twins to weekend activities, but he's starting to adapt. It's a small change, but notable. My parents are struggling. Dad sends occasional texts, awkward attempts at small talk. Mom swings between angry voicemails and cold silence. She left a message last week. "When you're done with this phase, we'll take you back." She doesn't understand. This isn't temporary, it's my new life. Work has improved without family interruptions. I'm more focused and my boss noticed, assigning me a big project. I'm dating casually, taking it slow. The biggest change is internal. The constant anxiety I carried for years is gone. I'm exercising, eating better, sleeping well. My therapist, yes, I started therapy, says I'm healing from chronic family stress. Last weekend, the twins sent a package with handmade cards saying they miss me. It was bittersweet, but I stayed firm. I wrote back, saying I love them but need time for myself, knowing Ethan might not share it. Yesterday, an old friend said, "You seem lighter, younger." She's right. Despite the angry texts, manipulation attempts, and occasional guilt, I feel free. Real family love shouldn't feel like a burden. I'm learning that respect for personal space, recognition of individual needs, and mutual support are what true love looks like. Next week marks 1 month in my new place. I'm hosting a small housewarming with friends from my baking class, walking group, and work. No expectations, no drama, no family, just people who value me for me.